All right, in this video, I'm going to talk to you about the topic of you may already be free and just not know it. So, in my journey, looking back, I was a lot more free than I realized it. But since I was kind of discovering things for the first time and like tiptoeing my way into this different reality for myself, I didn't have a mentor come in and like show me the way and show me that what I was doing was like it was okay, like to give myself permission to do this stuff. And so now that I've been through this a couple times myself, when people give me certain objections, I'm like, man, like I don't like words are kind of a slower way to convey, like a really slow way to convey a lot of information very quickly because I know so much from my experience, but to like distill it down into words, it's like how do I compress 5 or 10 years into a sentence or into a paragraph, because the reality of a lot of people's situations, they're way better off than they realize it. They're just one shift or leaf away from realizing that they're way better off. So I want to try to communicate that in this video, from like where I started and where I got myself, and just show you that you may already be quote free or free enough to buy your time and use leverage to in order to create this window, this time window for yourself to create a passive or semi-passive stream of income for yourself that can set you up to do bigger and better things for years and years to come. That's what I was able to do for myself. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I did that in this video. So, what do I mean by you may already be free and you just don't know it? So, where I was, I'll just, I don't know your situation, but I'm going to tell you where I was, and it may, you may can relate. So, what I mean by that, and I may make a whole nother video about this same topic and stuff, or change the hook, the angle, the title, and stuff. It's communicating the same thing though. But like a lot of people use phrases like "I'm just getting by," or "I'm just like making ends meet," and "just living paycheck to paycheck." But like if in my experience, that with what I now know, is that living paycheck to paycheck, if you're like if you quote just have enough, you're way better off than a lot of people, and you just don't know it because let's just assume that your credit is kind of decent, or even if you don't use credit yet, you're way, way better off if you can just barely pay all your bills and you're not like in debt and you don't have like crappy credit yet. Like, because I was in the same boat. I barely had enough, and I was like using credit cards for the first, well, yeah, to get started in life. But what I discovered, like in my experience, is that if I paid just the minimums and I paid them on time or I paid them ahead of time, like I learned a little bit about the credit game just by being in it. No one taught it to me. I didn't seek out knowledge. I didn't even know where to go to get it, and my parents usually paid all their bills on time and stuff. So like they don't have a lot of experience in being like debt for long periods of time and paying lots of interest and like having low credit scores and stuff. So I learned everything I know about credit from experience. And what I discovered was that a lot of the things that people said don't do, when I did them, it not only did it not negatively affect me, it was the opposite. It positively affected me. So like I'm gonna share some of that in this video to let you know that tiptoeing or like dabbling or exploring in these areas called like debt and credit and loans and stuff, they're man, there's just so much to say. It's not as scary or painful as you might think. It's actually what most wealthy people do because money is debt. It's one of the few ways that I know for like lower and middle class people, when you understand even just a little hint of this information, it's a way for you to like leapfrog your way from your current financial situation to a way better one, and I failed a lot along the way. I took massive swings, or like they were massive to me, of like thousands of dollars and tens of thousands of dollars, and failed repeatedly. And it sucked, but like believe it or not, like even in all that suckiness, even in all that failure, like tens of, it's really like hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt over just a few short years, which is hard for me to even fathom because I never made more than $20,000 a year. But somehow, through all my like juggling of debts and loans and debts and loans, it like inched me closer and closer and closer towards not just like cash flow, financial freedom, but it like I was able to juggle it all and manage it all as I was trying to figure things out. Like, and my credit score, I I think only once did it dip a little bit below like 640. So in all that like hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt and it wasn't all at once, but it was like tens of thousands and then more tens, and then like I think the first amount that was like a lot to me was like 60,000 at one point, and that felt like a lot spread between loan payments and multiple credit cards, personal credit cards, because I didn't even have a quote like LLC or business set just yet. But what I'm getting at here and is is if I had to go back again, knowing what I know now, and like in your position, if you're in a similar position where you're like just getting by or like living paycheck to paycheck, I would explore credit cards and loans and stuff as a way to either buy you some time or buy you some time plus give you the leverage to invest in like process that is going to like, if you work it, then it will start to produce some results for you that can result in pulling in more income that can help you offset and eventually replace your job. So that's what I really want to communicate in this video. And to tie this into what I do, what I teach, I've actually included this as a bonus in my SEO affiliate domination course, which is what I'm most known for, like affiliate marketing and teaching it through affiliate through SEO as the traffic source. And that this may seem that this Credit Secrets mini masterclass is like offer that I put together a couple years ago, and I just include it now as a bonus. And it may seem like a tangent, like going in a different direction of like, what does credit have to do with like affiliate marketing and SEO and making money online? Well, it had a lot to do with my journey. It's like the reason that I had time to sit down and do it, and put in the time, and then and I never even really had like a super duper clear and confident path, but just like put in the time in the direction of kind of like dabbling. Like I think I have a little bit of confidence in the direction. I'll just dabble until hopefully it produces some results. So credit and loans was able to buy me time and gave me the resources to invest in tools and softwares and information products and mentorship and masterminds. And so I was like negative, 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 negative for a long time before, and just had like revolving debt, just accumulating probably hundreds of dollars in interest for multiple cards. And that used to make me feel like bad and a failure. But then when I hear the truth about other like solopreneurs and entrepreneurs and stuff, a lot like a lot of us had this same journey. Like there's no shame in starting with like credit and using other people's money, because like the reality is like most people do that. Again, that's like how money actually works anyway. Like the people that know how it works use other people's money all the time and have no shame in it, because like they just know that that's how the energy of money works, and you just like go get it, you pull it out of the nothingness, you pull it out of infinity, and then you pour it into something, and that something's either going to produce more money or not. And if it doesn't, then you kind of like take that loss, or you just shut down that entity, file bankruptcy, and do it again and again and again and again. And like bankruptcy and failure, it's just a part of life. It's just a part of the game. It's nothing to be like, oh man, I failed. Like most people fail because even with like a proven blueprint, but most of the times when we're starting out, we don't even know the questions to ask, so we don't we just fail our way to a little bit of success and stuff. So I've included this as a bonus, and this to me, I mean, even just this alone is worth to me to easily tens of thousands of dollars, because it can help, it can kind of shed some light on how to get tens of thousands of dollars in resources and do that over and over again. So it's like, if you're somebody who already is like, man, if I just had the money, if I just had the resources, I know where I would put it. But your money block is this ignorance around like where to get it. This is the fast track to multiplying money. So if you haven't been able to convert your skills into cash and cash flow from like a job and pulling in money that way, then this is the way that I did it. This is the way I recommend you do it in order to like leapfrog your way and get ahead. And this is a little like, it's a very, there are not very many like modules in this course, because it's they're the first module, it's like about 2 hours, and I explain, see if this loads, like I explain, I'll just kind of hover over this. I just kind of winged it and shot it. This was a couple years ago. I just shot it from, stream of consciousness or whatever, and went over my understanding of the different parts of credit, your credit report. And I used like Credit Karma as a visual example, and showed that, like, I think at the time of me making this, yeah, I guess it was like 737, but shortly after this, my credit score was like 800. So anything above like 730, 740 is pretty good. And this was, at the time of this, I had hundreds of, uh, a couple $100,000 spread around different personal cards, I believe. And I just showed you how actually, the more credit and the more credit limit you have, the better. It's not the opposite. It's not worse. So in this video, I believe I just shared the components of what makes up a credit score, my thought process, and how to manipulate that score and use it to your benefit for getting approved for like loans, how loans can kind of then offset and reduce your credit limit or your credit usage on, and your utilization on those cards, and how taking loans and using that to pay off your credit cards, that'll boost your score. And then how you can then increase that kind of is a signal to the credit card companies that you're a good steward of that limit. And then you can request limit increases, and just keep doing that back and forth and inching your way, like using debt to get more debt, to get more debt, to get more debt, to get more debt. And eventually you're in this place where you've got, hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, and now you can really make a big move. And so that's pretty cool. So I explain that. And then in this other video, I share with you, it's a little bit shorter, I think. I share with you like my thought process and how to apply those loans and credit cards, and how I use like loans specifically to buy myself time. Because that, when you get with credit cards, you can liquidate them, like pay yourself through different sources, like one PayPal account to another PayPal account, that you own them both, and you can liquidate a card that way. With loans, the cool thing about it is you get that lump sum. You can use those funds in a way that offsets or cancels out a lot of your expenses for several months. Then that buys you time, and then you can even use some of the loan funds to go towards the payment of that loan for several months, so you don't have to worry about where you're going to get the money to repay. It's like, we'll just use a portion of the loan itself that you just got, so you don't have to stress out and worry about that. So that's kind of the short version of like what I teach and how I bought myself time and stuff. So that's what I want to communicate in this video, is that, if, because I feel like a lot of people are just in a way better place than they realize, if they just had the awareness that I have about the monetary system and how it works. But they just have a lack of awareness of what tools are available for them, how they can use those tools to get ahead, and really just buy themselves n- not just buy themselves time, but buy themselves chances to 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 take a risk again and again and again and again and again. Like I can't tell you how many things I tried in a few short years. Like it, and time, the way I saw time back then, in my like 20s and early 30s, it just felt different. Like I get it now when older people say like time feels different, time works different when you get to a different age. It just feels way different right now. And even though it time felt longer in my 20s, so I the way my mind worked back then, I was able to do so much more than I thought I was doing at that time. And like when I was looking back and reflecting on all the things I did and where that got me, it was such a short amount of time. It was only just a few short years. Like I started in 2010 with one credit card and a limit of $1,500, I believe. And by by 2016, just 6 years later, I had a couple of almost $200,000, I think, in credit limit spread across multiple cards. And then I had by that time I had acquired and paid back multiple loans of like five five figures each. And so I had like a lot of money had or a lot of that was a lot of money to me at that time, relevant to how much I was earning per year. A lot of money had moved through my fingers. And the coolest like thing about being able to get approved for loans and stuff for five figures and beyond was it was just shocking to me that I was able to, I wasn't making more than 20,000 a year at a job, and I could get $20,000, an additional $20,000 or more paid into, like, deposited into my personal checking account within like a day or two. That was just mind blowing to me. So like if I want you to kind of think about that. Like if that's this position that you're in now too, to where you're like, man, it's why you think you can't get ahead. It's because you have no leverage, you have nothing to work with. You have like, but if you tap into credit cards and loans and peer-to-peer lending, that's the route I went with loans. I haven't gotten too many like traditional loans, but when I say loans, I mean peer-to-peer lending. So sites like Prosper and SoFi, and there's Best Egg now, there's Lending Club, there's so many of them. Back then it was just Prosper and Lending Club, I think. Now there's so many more of them, and you can get loans like at the same time from all of them and just stack them. So you could literally, probably in a week, if you batched it all together, you might be able to get approved for $100,000 in like cash that just comes into your bank account all at once. And like for a lot of you, that might buy you a couple of years, And so like if you're doing something like what I do and teach, which is SEO, which doesn't take a lot of money and tools, and you don't have to have some elaborate process. If you just have a simple process that just takes a little bit of effort, you could just like manually, show up consistently, and like you don't have to be as stressed, because if you have the bankroll through other people's money, and you have a strategy that you know is going to work because you've seen other people get results with it, which I have tons of testimonials of people saying the same things and using like this, I got results in the same amount of timeline. Then you can be confident that like this types of methods will work for you in approximately the same amount of time. And if you put in more reps, then you're just going to get more feedback, more data, and you'll have that data, that feedback will give you more confidence, will make you a better and better and better person at implementing these this method. And I don't think you realize, I think people underestimate how much like exponentially their results go up as they get more and more confident and stuff. It's like a hockey stick growth curve. It may start out small, 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 but then you make like your results compound more rapidly at a certain point. So it may feel like nothing, 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 and then something, and then like from that something, then it might be like 2x and then like 10x, and like there may be a point that it may be harder to maintain that hockey stick growth curve, but from barely getting by, like your results can compound quite quickly. So like in 2016, I didn't make more than $20,000 a year at my job. On the side, I think I was actually even making more just with my side hustle affiliate income, even though it didn't feel like that. I think I was making more most months than my job was bringing in, but I thought I needed to like be way, way, way richer to quit my job. And 2017 was the year I quit my job, and I haven't had one since. That was my first six-figure year. Barely, crossed 100,000 just a little bit. And then the very next year, I doubled that. So that's what I'm talking about. Of like that's pretty significant. Now, I didn't double it from 300K to 600K the next year, but like still from like never making more than six figures to crossing six figures, and then going from a little over 100K to 300K, that's a pretty significant jump. And if you're just able to like maintain that again and again, like that's even that in of itself, of being able to maintain a couple $100,000 consistently, that is a compounding effect. So long as you're not like overspending that, put you could maintain, if you maintain your expenses for a couple years, but your money that you're producing is the same, then you can dump lump sums of those profits into investment vehicles that then have this another compounding effect that can produce cash flow or grow it in ways that maybe you're not able to do it yourself just with effort. So hopefully that all makes sense. Yeah, I just wanted to share this with you. This is like part of my story, part of my journey, and to let you guys know that like, if I'm not every person. Like, I'll probably make another video about that. Like, I didn't start at like zero or like negative or massive debts or like living on the street. I started middle class. So I started with nothing, in the sense that I didn't have like lots of money, but I had like shelter. I had a car that was, given to me that I didn't have to make payments on. So I just had like basic expenses and stuff. And then, but I had a very low paying job. And, luckily I had a compute laptop and an internet connection, but I've never had a TV, all my adult life. I didn't go on trips. I didn't buy nice clothes. I didn't go to concerts. I didn't go out drinking. I didn't spend my money. I didn't have the money to spend. And I put all of my loans and credit towards like trying to, learn something that was going to produce more money than I spent. Since I was young and naive, I had way unrealistic expectations for many years. But eventually I found something that clicked for me, that like resonated with my personality and the way that I process information. And for me, it was affiliate marketing and SEO. This was something that I could just it fit with my personality, where it's like I don't necessarily want to be the name and brand and face and manage people and stuff, but I pretty good at pattern recognition, so I can identify a product based on certain criteria and say like, this one's going to be popular. This is a product that I like. This is what I see in it. This is like the potential I see. And if you trust me, then you can buy this through my referral link. And that was what worked for me. It's just like directing traffic, pointing people to other people's great products and services. That was what worked for me. And I feel like there's a lot of other people out there like that don't want to have their own product or service or software. They just want to follow a simple recipe, and use someone else's recipe, kind of like baking a batch of chocolate chip cookies. They don't want to figure out what chocolate chips are, or where to source them, or how to make them, and things like that. But they would just They just appreciate going online, finding someone else's proven recipe, trusting that those list of ingredients produces that outcome that they're looking to get, and then just do that quietly and consistently. I think there's a lot of people out there that this sort of process resonates with. And what I like about it is it ultimately produces what I feel that most people want, whether they realize it or not, which is essentially building this thing that's pro- producing and pulling in money for them even when they're not working. Like that's really the ultimate goal. That is passive income. That is essentially what an annuity is. That's what most people are working their whole lives for with this thing called retirement, whether they realize it or not. Like no one ever explained retirement to me, but essentially you're working for decades, rolling this tiny little snowball up a hill that hopefully one day it's big enough that it'll spit off enough in like dividends or returns to produce, a couple $1,000s for you, more than that if you're lucky or whatever, if you have a better paying job. And hopefully that whatever it spits off will be enough to cover your life living expenses for the rest of your life. That's essentially what retirement is. But you can close that gap, you can get there way, way sooner, or at least have like a taste of or retirement with this type of system and method, because I was able to do this for myself. I didn't make all my money with this course. I didn't make all my money with like paid ads or anything like that. Or I didn't get to the 2 Comma Club award and stuff with this offer or anything. I actually made more money teaching others, or from doing what I teach than teaching others what I did, if that makes sense. So you can, if I was able to do it, and again, I don't have these elaborate systems where I'm like even tracking anything. I'm just like produce. I'm a very like creative, visionary kinds of person, where it's like I see opportunities. I, you know, throw stuff at the wall, kind of sloppy, and just repeat that process over and over again, and then kind of, yeah, share that same sort of philosophy with others. And what is mind blowing to me is that I started tracking my results for the first time in the middle of 2015. And that was really game changing for me. I think that's one thing that I would recommend that most people do, so that you can just see visually like where is what's coming in as a result of your effort and stuff, so you know where to kind of double down. And the things that are, you just do more of the things that are working. If you're not tracking anything, which I don't track like affiliate links and things like that, but if you at least tracking what's coming in and where that's coming from, like what income, what products and services you're promoting are producing the income, then it's going to help give you a more clear picture of what sort of things, like where the traffic, where the energy, where the attention is moving online. And then you can double down those things without having to guess as much. You'll start to get what I call a pulse on the internet, or like a little pocket of the internet of like where that energy and attention is, because you'll have your own results, you'll have your own data, and you can again just like make more educated decisions. In the beginning, it may be a little bit of a guess. You'll have a recipe for how to, like, what to do, but the other variable is like which product do you add to that recipe to promote. And the short answer there is, I mean, I give you a bunch of recommendations inside this course, but you can either start there, or the other answer is pick a bunch of offers. Just pick a bunch of offers. And, the process is going to be relatively simple and the same, but use the same process for a lot of different offers. And then I'd say for every 10 offers you promote, there'll probably be 1 to 2, maybe sometimes 3, that are going to be the winners. And then just repeat that process. And then for every batch of products and offers and services that you promote, there'll be a winner and a lot of like duds. and then eventually your list will get more and more refined to where the only money that's coming in are the winners. So but that you just repeat that process over and over again, you're going to have more fewer winners than you have losers, but the losers over time will pay for, or the winners will pay, or the profits from the winners will pay for all the losers. So yeah, there's a lot of information to take in. And just one other thing I wanted to add is like, this is the current price of the training. It's probably going to go up in the future. That I've kind of, it's covered around this price for a while now. But one thing I wanted to point out too, I think you have to be in the US for this option, but like it's got Afterpay and Klarna, and this can spread out the payments to make it easier for people that maybe don't have the $1,000 for the full price of the course up front. So and that's not something you have to feel bad about either. That's just where you might be in life. And some people, that even I know people that make a lot of money that choose these options too. So it's not something to feel bad about, because it just helps spread out your budget and stuff. And buy, again, it's just another way of buying yourself time. And if they're interest free, but it breaks it up, let's just say you budget $1,000 for this course, if it chops it up into fours, well, now you've got 750 other dollars to implement this, to try and make your first sale, or trying to make your first $250 to then cover the cost of the next payment. So that could be a goal for you. So I just wanted to point that out as an option too. So just like changing the way you think, and then getting these different levels of mindset shifts and awareness, it changes a lot. But I wanted to share this because it's, again, credit may seem like a whole different direction than affiliate marketing and affiliate SEO, but like everything in life is connected and stuff. So like this isn't like SEO doesn't like my journey specifically, like it doesn't, I didn't achieve this all on my own, all by myself, with no other resources, with no other help from other people, with no other mentorship. Like I consumed a ton of courses. I spent a ton of money on other types of courses, other making money online methods. I attended masterminds, combined this with credit. That's what allowed me to get the leverage, to buy certain tools, to try certain things, to experiment. And so all these things work together. So I wanted to be transparent and share this resource and angle with some of you that haven't quite reached your income goals for yourself, to just be real and say, hey, I didn't just have like a great job that had some extra cash flow and like life was good until it got better. I was like kind of barely getting by for years, and then it started to work out. But I was doing all these things in common, like all the credit stuff in combination with learning about making money online, to even give myself the means to be able to take those risks, to like buy ClickBank products and buy different softwares and try different methods. And like, yeah, it was a lot of failure and stuff. But, all these, again, it wasn't like I had enough money from day one. And then every single month I tried something new with the extra cash flow that I had in my budget. Like it wasn't anything like that. It was, barely just having enough to, I don't even think I made enough at any job to pay for all of my expenses. I think I was able to pay for like rent, gas, you know, utilities, and then I probably had to put like food on credit cards, and then maybe a few other expenses, and then I put all my internet marketing stuff on credit cards. And so like that was my situation. So if you're in a similar situation to where you're like, I don't have enough money to even take risks, you probably do, and you just don't realize it. So, if you got nothing else out of this video, and you're where I'm kind of describing where I was in this back then. And this wasn't too long ago. It was probably like 10, 15 years ago. So I would highly consider investing in this, even if you could just only afford like 1 month and you default on the next three payments, it would be worth it just to go through this information so that you can, like, if you're ignorant in this information, which I'm not even sure if anybody else online, I mean, there may be some YouTuber or something that talks about this, but I don't think there is, to where they're going to like just be raw and real with you and give you some insights into like the credit game, and like not just like what each of the metrics mean on your report, but like how to think like me, how to you know yeah, just how to approach that debt and stuff. I don't hear, I don't know of any resource that talks about angles and stuff of how to use it. I know there's some credit courses and stuff these days, but I don't think you're gonna I don't think they're gonna share with you what I share with you, and give you like the, again, just, I don't think they think like me. So I think you're gonna learn a lot, and just that these this information alone, even if SEO and affiliate marketing has no, you have no interest in it whatsoever, just this alone would give you the awareness of where to go and get tens of thousands of dollars repeatedly that can be scaled up over time to multiple six figures. And they're between peer-to-peer loans, personal cards, and then there's business credit cards, which is a whole nother direction. And it's, in my experience with business cards, which I don't think I'd go over in this training, because I was probably just still leveraging personal. And this one, I don't even think I had set up my LLC yet. But my experience with business credit cards was even faster and easier. I got like six figures in the credit cards in the first week of opening my LLC, which was insane. Literally just apply, 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 and then like, got approved, 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 which is just insane. Again, like coming from not making more than $20,000 a year to getting approved for six figures in credit in 1 week, like that's a lot of power. That's a lot of, yeah, like potential leverage there that can be pushed out to then be multiplied and stuff. So if that's something you want to experience, it's totally possible, and you don't have to already be making lots of money to be able to access lots of money. And I'm, for someone watching this that may be making like multi six or seven or eight figures, that all that's obviously relative. So it's lots of money in the sense of the person that's never made six figures, to be able to access it and to be able to control that amount of energy without ever having to had earn it yet. That's a lot of, just think of ways that can be rolled into things to exponentially get yourself ahead. And that's what you can do with credit and leverage and stuff. So yeah, hopefully you got some value out of this video. Hopefully you learned something. And yeah, if you're not very credit savvy, I would highly, like, that is the secret, in my opinion, to this whole money game. If you're in the US, like, credit is abundant, and it's so simple, it's so fast and easy to get. And that is the secret sauce, in my opinion, to go from like middle class to not middle class anymore in this system. Like, at least that's what worked for me. Like, if you're someone who's able to, you know, go through courses or read books and like translate those skills into like six figure skills at a job, that's cool. That's a different angle. That's a different direction. That's not something that ever worked for me. But if you're someone that what I'm saying resonates with you and you're like, yeah, that's me. Well, this is what I did to go from where I was to never being in that position again. And it's a whole different level. it's a whole different like frequency almost. You're just like, I was once somewhere in a certain place. I am not there anymore. And I almost like don't know how to not be here anymore because I have this awareness, and you can kind of step into that and have that, get that understanding for yourself, so that you never use that excuse anymore of like, oh, I can't afford $1,000. No, you just don't know where to get it. Like if you know where to get it, then it will never be an issue of like I can't afford like the iPhone that I want to get. And if $100 is a difference between an iPhone that you can and an iPhone that you really want, like you'll never have those objections anymore. It'll just be like, uh, do I want it or do I not want it? It's not going to be, can I afford it or not? You're yeah, or can I afford to go to this mastermind, or can I afford to go to this live event to where I can network with people to get like a massive ROI? Can I afford the travel to get there? Like that's not going to be, it doesn't have to be your reality anymore. You don't have to keep repeating that loop over and over again. But yeah, if that's something that sounds attractive to you and you're ready to like level the fuck up, and get out of that frequency or whatever, then yeah, check out my training. If you go to the homepage, watch this presentation, it'll give you a little bit more about our process, and you can decide whether or not it's right for you. But even if it's not, and you're just interested in this credit secrets information, it's worth 100 times the price that I'm charging just for this piece of information, which comes as a bonus. So pretty cool. So thanks for much for checking out this video. Watch until the end, and I'll see you in the next video.